Hello everyone, happy Monday to you. Hope everyone's having a good day out there. Today we're going to do a little bit more on the chop top tutorial. And yes, I'm going to tease you with the pink and green and all the other bright colors in the background. Too lazy to pick up the 53 to put the backdrop up tonight, so I'm just going to leave it all out. So last time we left off, we had the center section down through the middle of the roof. It's not quite down where I want it, but I can grind that off and smooth it out. It'll level itself off. Plus maybe even have enough left to kind of put a little bit of that chrome trim on the edge of there. Maybe. For the fill panels, if you have any old scrap car bodies laying around that you've kind of either busted up or maybe you've been hacking on them a little bit, cut the front end off or something, you can always use other sections of roof to fill these areas in. I happen to find this piece within the 62 Buick box. It's just a piece that was on the end of one of the sprues. I guess it's probably just to make sure the sprue fills out. Just make sure the the sprue gets the adequate amount of plastic filled into the sprue to fill all the parts out. But this is pretty good thickness. I think it's about as thick as the plastic on the roof. So I think I'm going to use that for the fill across the roof. We'll have to roll the ends a little bit. You can either use I use a cigarette lighter sometimes, or a lot of times just the edge of a table and bend it. You can kind of get enough of even with your fingers too. Use just a little pressure like that, you can get a nice little curve on it. A lot of times that might be enough to, fill or get the right curvature of what you need for it. Something like that might work out pretty good. Might get it kind of close. But tonight we're going to do the fill sections on this. If we have enough time, maybe I'll get into cutting the glass for this thing. If I can get down to the point where we can get the roof filled in, get the glass cut for it, I'll probably call this one a good one, or call it quits on this one for now. All that will be left after filling in the roof is grinding off or sanding down some of these high spots where the plastic is. You want it, or I prefer it a little higher than the roof, so you can catch it a little bit. That way you can sand the plastic down. That way you're using less filler in the roof. If you have the fill sections down lower than the roof, then you're going to have to use filler to fill it. And there's a lot of times where, as you're sanding it down with that much fill in there, the pressure on that roof of pushing down while you're sanding sometimes is enough to pop that filler out of there. So I always try to keep, the plastic pieces that I'm using to fill with higher, not much, just a tad bit higher than the roof, maybe by just the thickness of a sheet of a paper. Just enough that way when you sand it down, you're sanding the plastic down and you're molding it together, and then all you should have is just two little lines where the separation comes into play at. Hope that makes sense to everybody. But for right now, we're going to take these off. I just kept them on throughout the week just to add a little support so it wasn't relying totally on the backbone of the roof here. What I do here is I just take the piece I'm going to use to fill, slip it in the side, kind of butt it up against one edge or the other. If you're, the back edge, front edge, whatever edge you want to push it up against, get it close to it. Something like that. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm just getting it close to the edge, and then I'm going to come across. If I get my marker right. Know what it is with this marker. Sometimes you go to scribe on something, mark on something that just doesn't want to write. Do something like that, and then we'll kind of highlight the sections where we want to kind of end at. I don't know if you notice I put two little X's on here. I do that just so the confused portion doesn't set in and I don't cut the wrong piece. Or at least that way I know which piece I'm after to use for the roof. A lot of times after I mark them, I do cut them a little bit longer. It's better to cut them long than to have it too short and have to use another piece to add in to fill with. It just helps a little bit to do it that way. That way it's less on you as you're doing We'll work on it, what have you. Hold on one second. I'm going to put my pad back down here. And I'm back again. Just wanted this down. That way it's a little easier to, as I'm cutting, to kind of keep the part from slipping all across the glass. Only problem with leaving the glass top is you're trying to hold a piece in one position while you're cutting. It wants to get away from you. You know what? I'm just going to scribe this out. Just take a piece of like a straight edge steel ruler, or whatever you want to call it. Line it up with your mark again, leaving it just a touch long. I'm going to try to do this without taking the camera out. Yeah, that's not going to work too well. It'll work all right, I guess. Work good enough, but it's not going to work too best. Or the best. Yeah, not enough to snap it yet. Fabad looks at the comments on the video the other night when I was doing my 53 Ford glass when I was cutting it. But it looks like I had a few of you guys kind of worried, huh? All right. I'm not the type of person to brag by any means, but it's not my first rodeo, so I'm used to cutting glass, snapping glass. Like I left in a couple of the comments on there, if I break, I mean, I've broken plenty. I made that one look easy when I cut this the other night, but there's been plenty of times I've gotten to the midway across the glass and it snapped the entire thing in half, and it just leaves you kind of sitting there dumbfounded, like, what? So you just kind of toss it in the garbage and look for, search around, look for another piece of glass, and hope you can find one that'll work and recut another one. This ain't won't snap too well. Just not. There we go. Didn't eat my Wheaties this morning. Need to cut a little bit more, Use the tools to do the job. That's what they're for, right? Yeah, hopefully we won't snap the Buick glass tonight, or whenever I get around to doing it. Hoping we get to it tonight. If not, I've got one more extra kit out here in the garage. There we go. Or we'll just find something else. Or we'll play Fred Flintstone. We'll just leave it without windows. We'll just put a pair of goggles on, go down the road, get the bugs in the teeth, right? Always one way to take care of it. All right, now that I got that done, it is a little wider. Like I said, I like to cut them a little wider than what they are. Yeah, I know I could cause a little, create a little bit more work for myself, but I'd rather cut it down from a wider piece and get it to fit snug than to have it sit too loose. And like I say, have it. What it does when it sits loose and you go to glue it in, you're relying on the super glue or whatever adhesive you're using to fill the gap, and you don't want that. Over time, I've noticed a lot of times. Sorry, I'm out of frame here. A lot of times I've noticed that filler, if you rely on glue and stuff like that to fill the gap, over time they shrink and they sink down in there. I've got a few of my older Kustoms these lines in them. You can actually see the lines in the paint now. So, some 15, 20 years later, the paint or the putty even shrinks down. I used to use this stuff, the glazing putty. I used to use this stuff a lot in place of body filler for filling these seams. And I found out you can't really do that. That was years ago. But I found out you can't do that because this stuff shrinks like crazy over time. So I just use that for minute little small imperfections, filling them and whatever else. But I found out that you don't want to use that for, like actual body filler. I don't know how many people use it, but I also use that Ave sculpting putty. It's a 2-part putty. I use that stuff a lot too to fill in and work with, because that stuff actually, you can use water with it while it's still curing. You can use water with it and work it into, you know, the shapes, different shapes of what you want it to fill. This was, like I said, this thing was built probably, I don't know, 25, almost 30 years ago. This actually has 3M body filler in it. Now it's getting closer. So you want a little compression on it. That piece won't fall out of there. You want it to, you know, actually be held in place by the pieces that you're putting it into. Like I say, over time, you know, you don't want too much glue, you know, gap where you got to fill it with glue. Sometimes the glue does shrink on you. But I'm just going to roll this just a little bit. My fancy little sheet metal brake here. Put my curve back on there. And then I'm going to talk with a marker cap in my mouth for a minute. Or after I wreck the 53 in the background here. Yeah, that ain't working. I can't talk as it is, let alone something in my mouth. All right, then we'll just snip this piece off. Again, I'm going to cut a little longer than what it needs to be, just to have the extra fill. You know, a lot of you guys have been making the comments too. You like what I've been doing, and like the open or the out of the box thinking that I do, but a lot of times it's just, this is just off the cuff. Sometimes I think, you know, have an idea in mind ahead of time, and I'll actually, you know, kind of go along with it and keep track with what's in my mind, so to speak. Sometimes it's just a whim that thought pops into my head and it's like, oh, I want to run with that. So I start making something, start building something. A couple of the trucks that are up here on top of my shelf right above me here, some of them were the same way. Now there, I just put the piece in place. It's going to have a few little gaps on the outside here, but those would be okay. You just don't want a lot of gaps up in the roof where you're going to be sanding. If you, like I say, if you rely on super glue to fill the gaps between these three pieces, you start sanding on this and putting pressure down on it, you'll pop that piece right through the roof, and then you got to start all over again. You have to dig your putty back out, get it all back down, bare plastic, re-glue that piece in, and start all over. Sometimes what you can do, is if you have a thin enough sheet of plastic, you can take and come on the inside of the roof, come all the way out to here, along here, then up along here and down through here, and then come like right across here to maybe here. You can cut a square piece of plastic to fill that whole gap. And if you have clamps similar to these, you can get in there and actually put a piece of plastic and glue that piece of plastic to the entire roof, and then reach through, clamp it to hold it in place. That way it sucks to the roof and stays to the headliner. A lot of times if you do that, it'll make your roof a little bit stronger. It'll bring everything and bond everything together a little bit better. Won't make everything as weak when you start sanding and stuff. Just nip that off. A lot of times I just use my cutters and snip the piece off, cut it off here, there, whatever, and that's going to be a little curve to it. This is too flat. There's a little bit of a side-to-side crown on the roof, along with going back, front to back crown as well. That'll be close enough to get us in the right direction of where we're going here. Once I glue that in place a little bit, like I say, leave it a little high. That way there's less to fill. Again, we'll get the trusty sheet metal brake out here. Put a little roll on this. Oops, or we break it off. Another reason why you want to leave it a little long. And I just tore that one in half. That's all right. That's what they make super glue for. Good friend of mine, I got a decal on my shelf here. I can't show it. He's a body shop man, owns and operates his own body shop. body shop. Yeah, works on cars on ships. But got a body shop. He had stickers made up years ago that said that stuff will buff out. And I stuck it on my workbench up here just to kind of be funny. But like I said, I can't really show it because the wording of it. But you get the idea. Enough of that. And this piece, we'll just, yeah, it's a little short, but that's all right. Ouch. Yeah, we'll make it work. Anyway, we'll start gluing them in here. If anybody has any questions on what I'm doing, either through the first, second, or this video, or have any questions at all. I know some of you guys have been asking questions about certain things that you see in the videos here. If you have any questions about anything, don't be afraid to ask. Be free about it. Go ahead and ask. I try to get back to everyone as far as the comments that you all leave me. I try to get back to every one of you and answer as much as I can. There probably could be some that I've missed. Some where you just, some people where you just say, hey, cool job, way to go, or something like that. I generally may not comment on. I'll just leave a little, click the like button on there just to say that I've acknowledged it, whatever. But there it goes. After a while, it'll be a little bit of a job trying to answer everybody, but I do try to answer everybody. Again, appreciate all of you subscribing and becoming part of the corner here. Starting to shape up and look like something on the channel here anyway. I know a lot of you have said that you like the What's in the Box segments. You like it when I knock the camera all over the place. Some people have said that you like the tutorials as far as what I'm showing and how I'm doing this. And again, by any means, this is not the way to do it. This is just my way of how I do it. And I mean, I'm sure there's other people out there that can do it a heck of a lot better than I can. Matter of fact, I know there is. Not only that, a lot of people have their own styles, as you'll find that you'll get into as well. You'll find something that works best for you as far as how you do this, and you'll take it and run with it and create your own way of doing stuff. Use a little accelerator on there and set it up. That's that. Now another thing too, even though these are super glued in place, you're going to want to watch and be careful as you're sanding so that you don't put too much pressure down and pop the roof loose. That's the biggest drawback of when you're working on stuff like this, is the sanding it, prepping it, and all that stuff, and breaking through what you've glued together. But from here, if you got a sanding stick or a pad like this is just a piece of foam pad. I don't know if it's like a piece of insulation or what it is. A friend of mine, Ken, gave it to me. Gave it to a lot of us guys that are in the Butcher's Car Club down here in Delaware, Wisconsin. And I use the adhesive 3M, sandpaper on a roll, the DA paper. I just use the 120 or whatever it is, 240 on one side and then 80 grit on the other side. So it's got 240 on this side, 80 on this side. That way I can kind of use it for a multi-purpose. But I use this a lot, and I also use the flat sanding sticks for like fingernails and stuff. But something like this, you want something flat. You don't want to use your fingers, because using your fingers, you can actually put divots in the roof. You want something that's going to be flat to give you a nice broad surface to come across. And one thing too, try not to sand straight with the roof or straight across. You want to kind of go at an angle, at a diagonal angle. You're going to want to cut across like this and then come across this way. That helps you to give a uniform and keep it level because sometimes if you sit here, okay, I got a little high spot here, I'm going to keep just sanding on this. Well, after a while, you've got a low spot on the roof because you sanded down too far. So I've learned that the hard way. a lot of times. Took me a while to catch on to remember or realize what I was doing, and listen to a couple people in the model car clubs that kind of said, well, this is what you need to do. And on the real cars, that's what a lot of the guys do on the real cars. They'll come across. If you watch a lot of the hot rod shows on TV and stuff where they're working on cars, you kind of pick up on what they do and how to do a lot of this stuff too. Or trust YouTube. There's a lot of videos out there on YouTube as far as how to, sand and prep and all that stuff. If you're not sure how to do it, I'm sure a lot of you already know how to do sanding and prepping, but just in case for those of you that don't know how to do it, it gives you an idea of what to look for and how to do. But with that in mind, I'm going to pause here for a minute. I'm going to open up the bag with the glass in it and pull some glass out.